A college with more conservative student clubs than liberal ones? Plus, Emily Sturge joins us to bring you our top stories of the week. And I sat down to interview a lawyer fighting for free speech on campus. It's all coming up in this episode of Campus Countdown. Welcome to Campus Countdown. I'm your host, Sofie Salmon, and I am so excited to share with you the college news you need to know. In this episode, we have lots to cover, so let's get right into it. This week, I had the opportunity to sit down with Cece O'Leary from the Southeastern Legal Foundation, who's heading up their new First Amendment project, protecting students' free speech rights on college campuses across the country and helping them change unconstitutional policies put in place by their universities. Cece had lots to say about why this issue matters and how students can stand up for free speech. Take a look. Welcome, and thank you so much for watching. I'm Sofie Salmon with Campus Reform, and I'm so excited to be here with Cece O'Leary, the director of the 1A project at the Southeastern Legal Foundation. Cece, thank you so much for being with us today, and welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, people might be wondering, what is this project? And this is a relatively new project, as I understand. So, how did this come about, and what do people need to know about it?
Yeah, well, the 1A project really exists to serve college students on their campus and to help them understand the extent of their First Amendment rights. And we are here as a resource in two primary ways. Number one, we're here as a legal resource for students. So anytime that something rises to the level of requiring legal action where their First Amendment rights may have been violated on campus, we are here to step in and stand up to those administrators or fellow students who may be violating their rights. And the other way that we are here for students is as an educational resource to educate students and equip them with the tools that they need to stand up for themselves so that they understand the full extent of their First Amendment freedoms, not only for their 4 years of college, but also for their experience beyond the university.
Great. So what is a free speech violation, and what should students do if they encounter one on their campus?
Yeah, so free speech violations can arise in a number of ways on college campuses, and it's really anything that leads students to either self-censor or it prevents students from being able to get out there and share their message. And we tend to call these red flags. These are common things that we see on campuses. So the number one red flag we tell students to watch out for is anytime a college tries to stop them from either spreading their message or inviting a speaker onto campus to spread the speaker's message. If the university stops students from doing that, chances are the university is engaging in viewpoint discrimination, which is always unconstitutional. Another major red flag on campus is called a prior restraint. It's when a university tries to censor students before they can get out there and speak. So they review students' posters and flyers and will approve or deny the flyers based on the message. And then the third major way that we see a free speech violation on campus is through anti-bias codes, which have been a major problem lately. And through these anti-bias codes, colleges will lead students to self-censor because they lead students to believe that they will be punished for offending other students, for saying anything that could be perceived as a bias incident. And so those are three of the major red flags that we've been seeing lately on campuses. There are certainly more, and I'm happy to talk more about those, or if anyone is interested, we also provide a guidebook to students on our website that gets more into those, and that's at slfliberty.org.
Great. The one thing you mentioned was these bias codes, and we've been seeing this a lot, especially I feel like exploding in the last few years. And so you guys recently sent a demand letter to the University of Maine for their bias code. Can you talk a little bit more about this case and how it really harms students' ability to express themselves?
Absolutely. Like you said, this has been exploding on college campuses in recent years where universities will have anti-bias codes that say, you cannot offend other students on campus. You cannot engage in a bias incident that will lead others to feel harmed or marginalized. And then what the university does is it creates a reporting system where students who feel offended by other people's words and actions can report those students to university administrators who can then investigate and even punish students simply for the words that they say. So it's pretty wild that this is happening. And unfortunately, the University of Maine was one of those universities that had one of those bias reporting systems. So we sent a demand letter to the university this past fall warning it that its bias reporting system was unconstitutional because it would lead students to believe that they could be punished simply for the words that they say. And we advised the university that they needed to update its website to clarify that students cannot be punished simply for speaking their minds. So students can report them all day long, but at the end of the day, the university is actually powerless to do anything about it. They can't take action, and they can't punish those students who are speaking and expressing themselves. And sure enough, the university complied with our demands. They updated their website, and so this is a big win, not just for students at the University of Maine, but for students across the country who are also trying to battle their bias reporting systems.
That's awesome. That's a great victory, and that's so exciting to hear. And we see this all over the country, north, south, east, and west. And at Miami University in Ohio, students were required to get permission before engaging in free speech activities, which is absolutely wild. So what did you guys do to change this policy? And where do universities get the power to tell students that they can do this?
Well, they don't. They don't have that power, right? The First Amendment prohibits that. That is what we call a prior restraint. It's when the university tries to approve or deny speech before someone can even get out there and speak. Unfortunately, we see this come up a lot in facilities use policies, which is what we sent a demand letter to Miami of Ohio about. And in their facilities use policy, they actually require students to submit posters in advance to approve or deny basically the content of those posters before students can hang them up and display them. And so this is a problem because it allows the university, again, to censor students because of their message, because of their viewpoint, and that is unconstitutional.
Many of the anti-free speech policies pushed at universities comes from the administration, but sometimes we see it happen more at the student government level. And at the University of Oklahoma, we saw that the student body wanted to defund conservative and libertarian organizations just because they disagree with their viewpoint. So what did Southeastern Legal Foundation do in this situation, and what change was made ultimately?
Yeah, this was just a couple of years ago. The climate at University of Oklahoma was really, really harmful to conservative students. And it was actually kind of scary to be a conservative student at the time. There were some conservative students who were walking to class one day and their peers spat on them. I mean, it was not a time to be a conservative on campus. So one particular organization wanted to bring a well-known speaker onto campus, and the student government found out, and they did not want this speaker to come. And so not only did the student government try to prevent the speaker from coming onto campus, which is viewpoint discrimination and unconstitutional, but they also tried to find ways to defund the conservative and libertarian organizations on campus altogether. That is unconstitutional. And so we stepped in and we sent a demand letter to the university administrators, letting them know that their student government was doing this. Because often what we find is that administrators don't even know what is going on behind closed doors when student government is meeting. And the administrators appreciated us letting them know about it. They took swift action to stop the discrimination that was happening towards the conservative and libertarian students. And ultimately, the speaker was allowed to come onto campus. And I just met with those students recently this past fall. They are thriving. Their organization is doing great. And so it was a big victory for them on that campus.
That's so great to hear, and it's so great to hear that the work that you guys are doing is affecting students on campus and beyond. So thank you guys for the great work you're doing. That's amazing. It sounds like on some universities, even making a joke is seen as not in the purview of free speech. And it sounds like on Clemson University, this was the case where students could be reported for making a joke. So can you tell us a little bit more about that case and what action you guys took against the university?
Yeah, this was another letter we sent as part of our demand letter campaign this past fall, where we sent letters to universities across the country warning them against their anti-bias codes, bias reporting systems, and so forth. And at Clemson, they had an anti-harassment policy that, like you said, literally banned jokes and said that jokes can count as harassment. Students are not allowed to engage in harassment or they will be punished. And they took it even a step further that made it more intimidating for students. Not only did they ban jokes, but they also said that if you are reported to campus authorities and are asked to meet with campus authorities, it's best to just comply and to just admit that you did something wrong. They literally say that if you demonstrate that you learned something through all of this, the process will be a lot easier for you. So obviously, this is very intimidating for any student on Clemson's campus. You can't even say a joke with your friends these days without fear of being reported to administrators. And if you are reported to administrators, you're expected to immediately apologize and back down from what you said. This creates a really hostile environment for conservatives in particular these days.
Wow. Well, it sounds like Southeastern Legal Foundation is doing some amazing work to help students protect their constitutional rights when they're being infringed. So if students want to get more in contact with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can visit our website, slfliberty.org, and you can find resources online where we have a guidebook that educates students more about their First Amendment rights. We encourage students to just download the guidebook and have it on their phones when they go to table or engage in speech activities. And you can also connect with us on social media, SLF_Liberty. That's our handle on Twitter and on Instagram. And yeah, we look forward to connecting with as many students as possible and learning from them, as well as hopefully educating them more.
Cece, thank you so much for your time and for sitting down with us and sharing more about what the great work that you guys are doing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you to Cece and the Southeastern Legal Foundation for their hard work on changing the unconstitutional policies of these universities. They truly are free speech warriors. Next, let's dive into our campus profile, the segment where we examine college campuses based on liberal bias, speech codes, and other relevant policies and factors. Today's focus is on a California university which has more conservative student organizations than liberal ones. Yes, you heard me correctly. Let's travel inland to California State University at Fresno. Fresno State is a public university located in Fresno, California, with an undergrad population of 21,776 students. As I hinted at before, there are more conservative student organizations than liberal ones at this university. According to Campus Reform's research, there are 4 conservative student organizations versus 2 liberal ones. That's something I bet you never thought you'd hear in California. Fresno State costs students about $4,250 per year in tuition and does not currently require students to submit their SAT or ACT scores for consideration. Despite having more conservative clubs than liberal ones, Fresno State is not a conservative campus. In the 2020 election cycle, 88.7% of donations by Fresno State employees went to Democrats, while a mere 8.7% went to Republicans, according to data from Open Secrets. Fresno and free speech sound like they should go together, right? Well, unfortunately not so much. According to the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, Fresno State has 4 policies that violate the Constitution when it comes to free speech, including limiting what students can say in online messages, emails, and web pages when using school technology. Surprisingly, Fresno State does not have a biased response system. They do, however, have a COVID-19 vaccine mandate. Some students and staff were so scared of COVID that they created a petition to shut down the university and move completely to virtual learning. The petition got over 1,100 signatures. If you'd like to learn more about Fresno State or read more campus profiles, head to campusreform.org. Now, let's go to Emily, who will give us the top 3 stories of the week.
Thanks, Sophie. In our first story, we're witnessing a pushback in DEI and social justice in higher education. Just this week, Campus Reform reported the Texas A&M system, which is made up of 11 public universities, is banning diversity statements from its admissions and hiring processes. DEI statements require job candidates to state their contributions to diversity and social justice. Statements like this demonstrate an ideological commitment and act as a litmus test for adherence to leftist political views. Scrapping DEI statements from applications will revert these universities back to logical, merit-based hiring practices, allowing them to recruit the applicants who are most qualified and not just those who write a statement of commitment to diversity. The Texas A&M University system trashed DEI statements from applications following a directive from Governor Greg Abbott's office calling for the state's public colleges and universities to shift back to a merit-based system. This change in the hiring process ensures compliance with state and federal law. In our second story this week, a student at the University of South Florida tells us that he was denied access to the mental health resources on his campus because he is not part of the Black, Indigenous, and people of color community. The student had reached out to the University Counseling Center asking to attend group therapy meetings at the time that worked with his schedule, but he was told that that time is reserved for Black and Indigenous students, so he would not be welcome. After denying the student from attending the session, the University of South Florida Counseling Center encouraged the student to catch another session next semester. This incident is an issue of the university denying the student fairness and equal opportunity, but this case is especially concerning because it involves the mental health of a student. At the Leadership Institute's campus reform, we've reported the worsening mental health crisis among Gen Z. Nearly 60% of college students qualify for at least one mental illness, such as anxiety or depression, and most illnesses take hold before 24 years old. How universities handle these issues, it really matters. Universities should not be making access to mental health services a divisive issue on their campus based on skin color. In our third story this week, the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee has clarified its bias reporting system after a legal group sent demand letters to the university calling their reporting system unconstitutional and a violation of the First Amendment. The Southeastern Legal Foundation warned in its letter to the university that their reporting system could, quote, chill freedom of expression because they allow anyone on campus to report students for perceived bias incidents. In response, the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee updated its website to inform students that they cannot be punished for reports of hate or bias-motivated incidents. Following this update, students are able to freely participate in free speech activities without constantly wondering whether they'll be reported to the campus police and subjected to punishment. The Southeastern Legal Foundation sent demand letters to 11 other universities that identified potential free speech violations. These letters have resulted in policy changes or clarifications at the University of Maine, Southern Utah University, and Iowa State University, making this a win for free speech on college campuses. Back to you, Sophie.
Thank you, Emily. Now it's time for the woke tweet of the week. This week's woke tweet of the week comes to us from Jen M. Jackson, who describes herself as a Black woman, an abolitionist, a lover of all Black people, and an assistant professor at Syracuse University in the Department of Political Science. She tweeted, quote, "Taught my undergrads today about why abolition is not just abolishing prisons and police, but about abolishing the myth of the criminal. They really pay me to politicize young people, and I'd have it no other way," unquote. I'll give it to her. At least this professor is being honest about her agenda. We've gotten to the point where universities are so complacent with their professors forcing left-wing ideologies on students that a statement like this is made and nobody bats an eye. First off, the myth of the criminal. What world does this lady live in? In New York City, for example, major crimes rose 22% from 2021 to 2022, according to the New York Times. In Los Angeles, the LAPD reported an 11.6% increase in crime from 2021, according to Crosstown LA. So don't believe statistics or your lying eyes. There's nothing to worry about. Just listen to your higher education betters. They know what's up. Second, Syracuse University's Political Science Department claims on their website that their mission statement is to, quote, understand the people, policies, institutions, and organizations that will shape public life. As a student of political science, you will gain essential analytical and organizational skills that can be applied to exciting careers in government, law, business, international organizations, nonprofit organizations, survey research, journalism, and teaching, unquote. Clearly, the university is not concerned with equipping students with true analytical skills when those who are supposed to be teaching such skills are bragging about overtly politicizing their students and attempting to turn them into good little left-wingers. That doesn't sound very analytical to me. Universities like Syracuse have long since lost their credibility in teaching students how to reason, examine, and question what they are taught. Instead, they have people like Professor Jackson force-feeding her students her personal political agenda. Students at Syracuse are paying tens of thousands of dollars, and this is the education they're receiving. It makes sense then why all of our institutions, from journalism to education to government, are saturated in woke nonsense when these lies are what the next generation is being taught. Thanks for hanging with us today. I'd like to thank our hardworking campus correspondents for their excellent work in exposing liberal bias on the nation's college campuses. If you are a college student and would like to become a campus correspondent and to read and watch more about what was covered here today, please visit us online at campusreform.org and follow us on all the socials at Campus Reform. I'm Sofie Salmon, and I'll see you next time on Campus Countdown.